Over the last 7 weeks, we've discussed the ways in which people from all over the world are becoming increasingly interconnected and aware of these interconnections and how they play out in their day to day lives. Economic systems and political decisions are increasingly linking people together from different places and regions all over the world. And this has led to an understanding of a diversity of beliefs, knowledge, practices, and even material objects. This new awareness of the diversity of worldviews has led people to question whether or not we are becoming more similar or if this new body of knowledge is allowing us to become uniquely different. We'll explore these questions a little more as we consider the relationship between culture, development, and globalization. In this module, we'll be talking about the relationship between culture, globalization, and development. The Oxford Dictionary defines culture as the way of life of a people, including their attitudes, values, beliefs, arts, sciences, modes of perception, and habits of thought and activity. Cultural features of a people are learned, but they're often too pervasive to be readily noticed from within. In other words, when we're talking about culture, we're actually speaking about the symbolic construction, articulation, and dissemination of meaning. We can look at culture in a number of different ways. There's material culture, and these include objects, resources, and spaces within a society, such as fashion, music, or cultural images. We can also talk about non-material culture, which speaks more to language, ideologies, and ways of thinking that represent a body of people. Many scholars argue that global culture is a product of globalization. Global culture refers to beliefs, knowledge, practices, and material objects that are all shared around the world. A good example of global culture would be global material culture, where billions of people worldwide have access to the same fashion, cuisine, music, film, literature, television, and social media. These are shared material objects, along with the information and ideas that circulate globally, creating the possibility of shared meaning and shared relationships. Although global culture means that billions of individuals across the world can have a shared experience, such as getting takeout fast food, there are a number of major concerns about global culture, one being cultural imperialism. Cultural imperialism happens when a small number of countries or localities dominate the market for culture and destroy smaller local cultures. Historically, American companies have been the most successful in creating material culture, and the concern about cultural imperialism is therefore often expressed as a concern about American cultural power. Take, for example, the influence of Hollywood films or American television, which is seen all over the world. Although global culture, cultural imperialism, Americanization, and Westernization are all important issues to consider. There has been some research that suggests there are limitations to cultural imperialism. A 2016 study found that people around the world recognize and desire global brands, but they still have a strong preference for locally produced culture. And this was especially true with regard to food and beverage. In addition, people also articulated that while they recognize and have access to American media, they also consume and sometimes prefer to consume media from their own nation or region. This shows the ways in which local culture is actually being combined with larger global culture, as opposed to being erased by it. Cultural imperialism can also be limited by various cultural policies that privilege local and national products. For example, in France, current laws require that 40% of all television content be recorded or produced in France. Laws in Australia and Canada are similar, so that 50 to 60% of the media content must be produced domestically. In Sri Lanka, there was a tax imposed on all imported films and television. And of course, we know that China's internet strategy, known as the Great Firewall, allows the Chinese government to monitor all foreign internet material and blocks content that it doesn't want its citizens to have access to. Most development workers agree that culture is one of the main pillars of development, and no society can progress in its absence. If development is regarded as the enhancement of living standards or growth, then culture is essential for multiple reasons. First, it provides us with a sense of who we are, and therefore it impacts our lifestyles, behaviors, consumption patterns, and values related to the environment, as well as our interactions with the natural world, all of which have to be considered in developing any kind of development agenda. In addition, culture and cultural events not only provide us with entertainment and social activities, but they also provide us with an education. And this allows us for integration, critical debates, and the exchange of ideas. Because culture is passed through a community throughout generations, it also impacts who we are as a people. And we'll talk more about this as we reflect on the relationship between culture, development, memory, and nostalgia.